Hi, and welcome to Yeshiva Sheva Aver, Rabbi David Katz. This is Parashas Beshalach. The name of the article in class, who are these people? Questions, comments, or feedback? I can be reached at Rabbi Katz at virtualyeshiva.com. And, what is it, Joe? I think we have this class and next week, and we're done. We will have finished 1 year's worth of commentary. So if it feels like a climax, it's not for naught. We're not going to stop, obviously, after Jethro, but for those following along and looking for downloads or media-worthy links or in print eventually, it will be coming out. So the complete cycle will be done, and then we will just keep going. Will the theme change? I don't know. I gave up a long time ago trying to predict what this thing is going to do. I'm along for the ride as much as everybody else. Every week is turning into an amazing discovery. I will say this, though. In the yeshiva world, goal setting is a big part of it. 1 second, let's write that down. Goal setting is a big part of the yeshiva world. Trying to finish a track date, a book, or whatever. So as I always mention, as we get close to the end, in Hebrew it's called a siyum, a completion. And we're getting ready for our siyum on the Chumash, right? This is our, I guess, kind of like our second and a half time through. It's kind of strange because we switched venues. But Yeshiva Sheva Aver is the official first time through. And the next siyum is actually coming not so much longer. And this is one you should actually give a big shkoyach for. This is interesting. Thanks to Joe, my partner in the studies of these issues, who brought to the attention to go into the Navi, the Haftorah, which the logical next step was the Zohar. As everybody knows, every article we introduce, that's part of this introduction, with Haftorah and then into the Zohar, looking for a thread into the parsha and the article in the class. So I am, excited to say, I really am excited to say this, that I think sometime around the beginning or middle of Bamidbar, right? So we're a little more than halfway through Shemos, and then the book of Vayikra, we will have achieved learning the Zohar cover to cover in the original. I think that's quite an achievement, right? So these classes will have encompassed literally the Zohar cover to cover with the commentary of the Sulam. And if anybody's wondering what we're going to do next on that respect, I'm seriously considering doing the Torah of the Arizal, and also Rav Moshe Cordovero, which this has been my Shabbos learning now for the whole program, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to insert those two works, Sfat Torah. It's all Sfat stuff. All these were penned in Sfat. When the Zohar is finished, I'm planning on going there. So it'll change a little bit, but it should be interesting nonetheless. Okay, as I said, we are introducing with the Haftorah and the Zohar. The Haftorah, I like this one, and anybody that knows my history knows why I like this one. SoulMazal was created by a dear friend of ours. The blog, you might know it. It's called Shirat Devora. Right? It was not so much publicized today, but it was a special blog in its peak. A lot of readership. And the author of that blog was the sole inspiration. There was nobody else at that time that saw the potential of SoulMazal and helped me launch what is now the thing that we're doing. Why do I say that? Is because the Haftorah is Shirat Devora. It's very apropos. Moses is going to sing Az Yashir Moshe. In the future tense, the Torah states that Moses will sing. As Moses is present at the splitting of the sea, the Torah speaks in the future tense, alluding to the future messianic redemption. So Moses, there he is. He's going to sing a song of redemption that the Zohar, as we're going to say in about 5 minutes from now, the very last words. The Zohar quotes Psalm 104. King David gives his definition of the 10th song, the song of Mashiach. So he explains what's the nature of the song. There's a concept, Moshe v'train Mashiachin, Moses and the two Messiahs. The idea that Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef are one and the same, which we'll explain that also. And the soul of Moses is included. So the soul of Moses will sing, and Mashiach ben David proper, as through Tehillim, explains the nature of that song. Now, remember back in Shemos, we said that Zipporah, the wife of Moses, she did the circumcision on the episode of the son of Moses. Right? Moses was going to die. Hashem was mad at him. And she performed the circumcision. Way to go, Zipporah. Now, in the research, when I was researching that, if you remember back, right, it was we focused the article on that episode, the Ger Tzedek woman. And in the research, I found, and I really didn't know this, it doesn't make the headlines so much, that Zipporah became reincarnated in Devorah. How interesting is that? And she's a judge. As we know, the judge implies, the Noahide laws as well. And in the parsha of where we were commanded at Mara, the bitter waters, this parsha, the basis of these articles, these people, whoever they are, coming out of Egypt, in the large scale sense, whoever that big conglomerate of people were, I don't know what you want to call them, Jews, Noahites, Gerim, Erevrav, Amalekites, whatever they are, they're going to get to the bitter waters in the Parsha. Moses sweetens the waters, and they're commanded, remember, in Paraduma, Brit Heifer, Shabbos, statutes, and honoring your parents, along with the 7 Noahide laws as taught by Moses, which becomes the template of the Rambam's halacha, what makes a Noahide. Thus, the dinim of the statutes that are mentioned in Mara, the prophetess Devorah, Shirat Devorah, she is going to be a judge, so she has to know what those statutes are. So on one hand, why was she brought in as the Haftorah? Maybe it's because she's a judge, and she's relative to the Gerim. And we say that she's, reincarnation of Zipporah, who was a Ger Tzedek woman. So you see how the flavor goes. And in her song, there's direct references to Gerim, Sisera and Heber. But what? I don't know if you guys are catching what I'm saying, because it really struck me like a ton of bricks when I hopped it and I got it. Can you guys guess where I'm going with this? It's really logical. Very simple. Think about this. Moses is going to sing at the Song of the Sea. And in the Haftorah, Devorah is singing her song through the reincarnation of Zipporah. You have a duet with husband and wife. Right? And Moses divorces Zipporah, and now through the reincarnation of Devorah, by the match made through Parsha and Haftorah, Moses and Devorah sing together. Is that not awesome? Seriously, think of that romantic view. scattered through X amount of years in the literature of the Parsha through the Haftorah, right? Moses and his wife finally sing their song together, made possible through the Torah. I don't know about you. I really liked it. Okay, over into the Zohar. We mentioned King David. There's an idea, that the two messiahs, son of Joseph and David, in the book by the Vilna Gaon Kula Torah, how do they work? Are they two? Are they one? And the idea is there's always kind of an aspect that makes it two. The idea is that there's two redeemers. Let's say that they're male, female, in their categorical role. But ideally, a complete man should contain both female and male qualities, such as wisdom and understanding. So all the while, David as the archetype Messiah, he must have the Yosef programming in him. So there may be an outward expression of Joseph in the world, but ultimately it's David. Is anybody following the Sharon demise? And the Rav Kadori note going around from back in the 2000s says that the Magen David, the shield of David, is in the garments of the Messiah. When you put it all together through Tehillim 104, as the Vilna Gaon quotes the verse from the Torah, Od Yosef Chai, Joseph still lives. And we think the word Od in Hebrew means still, but it doesn't necessarily here. It means tuffle. The word tuffle, let's say you have a biscuit with a piece of herring on it. Joe likes herring. And you want to know what blessing to make on this little snack. Now the biscuit gets mezonot, and the fish gets she'akol, the lowest common denominator blessing. The uneducated would say you make, let's say you make she'akol first, or you make both, whatever you want. The halacha is you make the blessing on the biscuit because it's more substantial, the mezonot, the grain, than the fish in the hierarchy of blessings. And the reason why you don't bless on the fish is because it's subordinate to the biscuit. That's called tuffle. Right? It's included inside, right? Adam is male, female, but we know it has an inclination of male. Same thing. So when we say Od Yosef Chai, Joseph still lives, what we're saying is Od Yosef Chai. That Joseph to David who lives, is subordinate. And that's called the body. Thus David's body, the animal soul, which is really the body, is actually Joseph incarnate. Joseph conquered his evil inclination. So that shield in the mentality, in the spirit, not ruach, but not even the nefesh, just the animation of David's body. Or here's a better word: the chariot that caters to David's soul. As Joseph is called Kisei LaDavid, a chair to David. It's the body. That's called the shield of David. Magen David, that is Joseph. And it is subordinate to the David Lives Onward program. So as King David explains, there's Od Yosef Chai, the body of David, in its ability to recognize God, says to God, Hineni, here I am. While the inner dimension, David's soul proper, that which represents the word of God, which the body does the will of this David, That inner dimension is the soul of Mashiach ben David. So there's Mashiach ben David within, and that Mashiach ben Yosef without. And that level of Joseph lives, Od Yosef Chai, because it really is empowered by David. It's a chariot to David. And that word of God comes in through the Moses program, which simply articulates what God says as he did at Sinai. That's called Moses and the Two Messiahs. And as the Zohar ends on the Parsha, it says that the Erev Rav, who double as a Moloch, i.e. our Yetzer Haras, are evil inclinations that are not rectified. Right? You are going to go to war with somebody because you're not Joseph. Every day we are going to war. We are attacking people. And we pay the consequence. Right? When you get in a fight at the coffee house, claiming that he ripped you off a nickel, and you're wrong, and you look stupid and out of character, that was your Yetzer Hara. It was actually in addition to your soul. It's called Tuffle. It was just subordinates there for God to work with you. Now, why would God do that to you? The answer is God wants to cause wars with you. You are a pawn on God's chessboard. And the reason why you're arguing is because you're saying that you know the whole story. But you don't. And neither did the guy that ripped you off supposedly the 5 cents. We all go to war and attack because we think we know the whole story. That's the arrogance of the animal soul here, the evil inclination. The rectification is to realize that you're just Tuffle. You're just an extension of your soul. Don't take it so seriously. You can't know everything by definition. And that's when we learn to work together and you combine the vessels, then in the laws of Mazal, it's called Shtei Mazal Ke'echad. 2 Mazal that act as one. There's your male-female. There's your completion, and there's no more arguing. You see 2 points of view, and the energy creates an inspiration of the entire Torah in potential. That's how you defeat evil, is by elevating your evil into good. That's how the good inclination comes out of the bad inclination. Another point that the Zohar makes is the mana, or mun. And I'll quote my holy Chavrusa, Chaim. He's getting on to this lately. I kind of had my own thought about it. This is his thing, based on the Zohar. The land of Israel is called Eretz Zvi, the land of the deer's skin, which miraculously grows to contain its contents. They say that the venison eats the man when it melts. And that the idea is that the air of Israel makes you wise. And the manna is really a physicality of wisdom, inspiration. Like a level of, almost like a vapor of it. Where it's like a real thin, just like the dew, as it says. And the land of Israel has that in its vapor form. That is Israel. That is the sweetness of Israel. That's why the Midrash says the land of Israel, the air makes you wise. And again, that's why it's called Eretz Zvi. Interesting. The miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea. Right, this is a big controversial topic. The Zohar says that even the maidservant had a greater prophetic experience than that of Ezekiel. Now, the interesting point here is the prophecy is not recorded in the physical realm. Now, something did happen in the physical realm, the lowest world called Asiya. And that's irrelevant. Because what is relevant is that they ascended to the highest world, Atzilut, emanation, where it's almost like the dream world. I'm sure everyone's had a dream at least once that it was so real you could identify a clear picture. And that's a miracle in its own right. When in your world of sleep, the dreams are inspired to the point where it creates, like a movie, like an ongoing, clear crystal message. A prophetic dream. What they saw at the sea were so many disparate parts that came together by the finger of God. It created a prophetic vision. And that vision was greater than what Ezekiel saw. And again, by definition, that happened in the upper world. So the prophetic experience was not a snapshot of Wet and Wild, amusement park. Right? That does not take a prophet to go down a water slide. Irrelevant of what was going on in the physical. What they saw was that the manna, in, let's say, its spiritual form. That pure inspiration. Let's say it's going to materialize as the dew. Well, let's say you see it as dew before it becomes the dew. Thus, their mazal was like that shechina, like that thick, milky cloud. Meaning they saw the mazal. You've heard the expression, you can cut the tension with a knife. The darkness of Egypt was so much you could feel it. The prophecy of the sea splitting was mazal so rich and dense, probably the most that's ever been in the world, until the third temple's built, that it was tangible. You could probably even interact with it. And they saw the destruction of Egypt, idolatry, the religion. That was the prophecy that they had of the splitting of the sea. Again, irrespective of what and if and to what extent on the level of the world of Asiya. The Torah is recording the miraculous prophetic detail. Don't leave out the word prophetic. A miracle is one thing, and there were miracles. The slaying of the Bechor, that was a miracle. God shows he is king of flesh and blood, life and death. But here it's the miracle in relationship to the prophecy. A prophecy is a miracle. Because like in a dream, you take... imagine all the random things you can dream. A Pepsi can, your landlord, a go-kart, a Cosby show, and a basketball. Like those are the concepts that your dream is focusing on in dream spiritual language, like code. And I use that word on purpose based on the article. Right? Let's say a basketball, I'm making this up right now, but let's say a basketball in Hebrew, let's just say it's Bina, right? Understanding. And the Cosby show is about the woman of the show. And the landlord was a mother who lived above you. So the dream becomes a little movie about how to acquire understanding through the mother attribute. Right? That is an example. It is not exactly accurate what I said, but the example works as an mashal, as an analogy. So the fact that you could dream those concepts and have them merge into a cohesive picture, that's the miracle. That's the miracle. It's like at a football game, everyone sits in the stands at the Super Bowl, and at the halftime, everyone has a picture under their seat that they hold up over their head, and they do the wave, and it comes out, it's Michael Jackson Thriller on the pictures of that they hold up. You've seen that at the halftime show, right? So everyone's different. It's every walk of life, and then they all, hold up the sign, and then, wow, a clear picture rises, and it's like a little miracle. It is a little miracle. Okay. Another point in the Zohar. Everyone wants to say, don't teach the Noahides about Shabbos, because they'll steal it, those Noahides. You know how they are. It's not theirs. And we don't want them to have it. So the Zohar says, I hear your question. It's not really a question. We know that. But I'll give you an answer anyways, because there is actually an answer. And the answer, again, is very male-female. And it's a rational answer to a non-issue. We know it's a non-issue, but the fact is, Israel was commanded in Shabbos. We know that. That was at Sinai. And there was no, let's say, proper world event of the Gerim being commanded in Shabbos, other than the fact that it was commanded in the Torah. Okay, point being, the Jews have been keeping Shabbos to some, and at some point in the chain, unbroken. People have got religious and unreligious, but there's always been a Shabbos kept since Sinai. And then even before that, going back to Adam. So the Jews have developed what's called is a cheshik for Shabbos. A cheshik is like when two people are learning a book together. It's not the number one priority of their lives. It's a cheshik. Every day at 3 o'clock, me and Bruce, we sit down and we learn a book. We like it. We talk about the weather, politics, the news, read a couple paragraphs, which said are a good Shabbos, and we do that for 30 years. It's nice. Every day, me and Margaret have tea in the park with biscuits and crackers. Whatever it is. The Gerim have not been properly commanded, went through a different route, come to the Torah by different means, right? There's the male-female again. So the cheshik is different. And again, male-female explains it. Okay? A man does not have a cheshik. You understand the word? It's an attraction, a desire to analyze the types of diapers for babies and which one is more efficient and price-worthy for our children. Right? They don't see it. It's just not on the radar. Maybe the Budweiser is, but not Pampers. Okay? And vice versa. Right? Women have a cheshik for things, and men have a cheshik for things. And if you don't have the cheshik, it is not a flaw. It just means you are you. By doing so, by Jewish training, the cheshik is developed. Right? Which wine for Kiddush? Which type of gefilte fish, Joe? Which type of table? It's to the nitty gritty. Now, the ger has things that he has a cheshik for. So when the ger is coming into Shabbos, his cheshik is going to be different. Right? It's yabba dabba do, the end of the 6th day. Thank God work is over. Let me just get to my meal and snuggle in bed with a book. It is that rest day. But the question is, what is your cheshik? Right? If you are a wine connoisseur, your cheshik is going to be, do you gargle the wine? You swish it? Open the bottle first? The other guy says, just give me a drink of wine. Let me enjoy my meal. Leave me alone. Can I just enjoy some wine with my meal? Right? And it's not, one is into one thing and one's into another. So it's literally, it's the cliche goes, apples and oranges. The Jewish Shabbat is of apples is compared to the oranges of the ger. Very male, female. You have yours, we have ours. And you know what? It's not a contradiction or a conflict. Just like you have the SoulMazal ke'echad, 2 mazel like one. You see it your way, I see it my way. And that's the beauty of the Shabbos in congregation together. Right? Imagine if the Gerim were more particular in the malacha, the forbidden labors in the Jews. How many fights would you get in? My Lord, it would be disgusting. Rabbi, it could be bow rare what you're doing. You say, who are you? What are you talking about, bow rare? Well, I saw you remove the pea from the carrot bunch, and it could be that you're chayav misa. That would be World War III just from the start. And imagine if there was a great desire to keep Shabbos, but they were lax. Right? And they're telling the rabbi, oh, you don't need to worry about the peas and the carrots. That's also no good. But if the Gerim are keeping Shabbos their way, and they're very happy whatever it is they settle on to do, and the Jews are keeping it their way, right? And they're very happy to not do bow rare during their meal, and it goes unnoticed. Let me eat my food, please. All right, and the Ger says, let me enjoy the company, please. Let me rest. Everybody gets along. So all the bogus narishkeit about, you're taking our Brit. I've heard that on Facebook a million times. They're taking our Brit. No, they're not. Right? The cheshik is different. The cheshik that was given at Sinai was particular, and that's the positive and negative again. The ger comes out of the negative of that, or the female of that, and it is manifested as totally different. And that is the beauty of Shabbos. The covenant of one becomes, the impact of that becomes a gift to another. Thank God. And finally, the concept of the tree of life is revealed in the Parsha. I like that a lot. There are the emanations in the upper worlds, and there are us, people, in the lower worlds. And we say that Abraham was kindness. What does that mean? What it means is, a guy named Abraham came to this world. And he understood that there's a world above. If I work on myself a lot, he says, and become very lifestyle conducive to kindness, maybe I can actually illuminate the upper worlds. So he focuses and focuses and focuses. I am chesed. I am chesed. All of a sudden, there is a revelation above. And then the energy or the bounty comes upon him like a boomerang. And then Isaac comes, right, and says, there is Gevurah, there's might. And then, Jacob comes, and this is the idea of the forefathers or the Merkava, the chariot, to those three levels. Now, Noah, Shem, and Adam, they pertain to different levels in the same world. Just, again, different parts of that world with different connotation. They succeed all the way through Joseph, David, Moses, and Aaron. All right, so now you have the world of Atzilus is illuminated. People down here turned on the light. That's called bringing the Shekhinah to earth. Now the world above is lit. Right, through Mazal. Right, Moses sustains the world, yet he needs sustenance. So the world up there is lit and bringing bounty into our world of that is divine, knowledge of God, Torah, all of that. And that energy, which is called Or Choser, or Or Yasher, the coming in light. First there was the returning light, now the light comes in Kabbalistic terms, and we're not done yet. It's still happening. The Messiah program is when the nation of Israel is illuminated below, which has never happened yet. And Israel is a correspondent to the level called Zer Anpin. Now, don't worry about the terms. But yet there's another level, Malchus, the level that reveals the whole thing. And that's our friend, the Ger. And the Jew proper stands with the Ger. So when the Ger and the Jew figuratively hold hands, that is the unification of God and His presence, the Shekhinah. That is where two become one. That is Yesod Malchus. That is heaven and earth. And when they stand together, we realize they look upon Israel, and they both realize that they are a member of Israel. Both are of the forehouse of Israel. And then Israel becomes the manifestation of the tree of life. The level of Torah, the level of God's revelation. So when they look in their hand, they are the fruit of that tree. And when they stand together, it's ripe, and it's no longer the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the tree of life, the fruit of. Thus, when you live by that fruit, you live by the Torah as a Ger and Jew working together, and that is the nation of Israel, as we're going to get into in our Parsha. Then they are eating of the tree of life, of the fruit of the tree of life. And then they have seeds of the fruit of the tree of life. And they make garum out of that fruit of the tree of life. And Balei Tshuva, as Rabbi Nachman describes in Torah 14, Likutei Moharan. And that's a very powerful concept. Thus, when they stand together, as David and Aravna on the Temple Mount, that energy comes back down, and that is the enlightenment, that is the resurrection of the dead, that is the souls coming back. That's what that represents. There's finally a manifestation of divinity on earth through the vessels that contain God's light. When that happens, you have a reason for that light. There's a temple, and God's presence can dwell in that holy temple greater than was, as we said, the splitting of the Red Sea. And last, but surely not least, Moses hits the rock in the Parsha, and we know that what this sounds like. He's going to hit the rock later on, and we say he sins and he's kicked out of Israel. Why did Moses hit the rock when he was told to speak to the rock in the following Parshot? The answer is in our Parsha. The Selah is the term for rock later on, is soft, and the Tzur, the rock that Zipporah is circumcised with, obviously is hard, obviously. He hit a soft rock. He was hard when he needed to be soft. And some can say that is the essence of life. The four craftsmen, the four elements, the four this, the four that. Always know your energy. Are you hard, soft, or hot and cold? If you're cold, maybe I should be cold too. Like water, maybe I need to be hot. Maybe I should be hard. Maybe I should be soft. That's mochin, that is intellect. Always resonating with the state, like the scientific word, state of the other person. They are hard and they need to be soft, so make them soft. Understand what mazel are they emanating, right? Are they like lettuce that when you heat it up they get like melted, or is it like an egg and you heat it up and it gets harder? Know the elements. Know what the dynamic is. That's really where thermal dynamics and quantum physics comes into a kind of a free will experience. Just to know, what I am. You are just a bunch of particles and things. So the Torah says how to manipulate that. Right, we told the yogis and stuff in the Avodah Zarah cults can make like wet towels evaporate. Well, the Torah says that you can do it in spirituality too. All right, there's our introduction into the article itself. We in Bereshit had an ongoing theme. Understand the Torah prophetically as opposed to contrived wisdom. Let the Torah come to you. Don't force the issue. Don't make things up. Now, are we all prophets so we can bank on that? Probably not. So the answer is, in interpreting pshat, the simple meaning, make it a good simple meaning. But to do so, you have to take into account the prophet or the prophecy. Take it into account that there is a fantastic revelation of life. Let Hashem give you the answer. King David says until him, that's how you do it. Just empty your mind. Don't be the smarter than the Torah and God. You know what's there. Let God give it to you. Trust God that He will. The Zohar says that's what Zohar means. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is brought down by Jethro. Just silence your mind. Jewish meditation. Let your mind be empty and as dull as that soft Selah. Don't hit it. And you say, but how am I supposed to answer the Torah if nothing's going on? Because if nothing's going on and you're not there, then your mind is infinite. Infinite can only be God. That is praise of God. By God's kindness of your praising Him, He will give you a salvation, and that is the answer and wisdom that you're looking for. That is the wisdom of King David in Psalms. With that, let God answer it for you. You say, I don't know what it means. Just keep going with it. Try to answer the Torah on a prophetic level. I mean, don't answer from wisdom. If you don't answer from wisdom, what else do you have? Prophetic. Are you a prophet? Irrelevant. Just understand that connecting dots from A to B to C might not necessarily be logical, but if you bring in the prophetic, you can make it make sense. A lot of times when people argue, they argue on details. They forget the simple revelation of truth is, does it make sense? It doesn't make sense to make up when Zipporah threw the proverbial it to his feet. And you say, well, it was the foreskin of an idolatrous practice that they probably, and I use the word probably, used to do in Egypt when they sacrificed to the false gods. They would give the foreskin, didn't they? Well, I doubt it. And the reason why I doubt it is because you just made it up. See, that's the discipline that comes from Torah. Sometimes you just can't make it up. And it's not really looked upon well by above when you just make it up. There's a big difference between making it up and suggesting an answer that makes sense. Right? One is you're allowing it to come to you, and the other, you're basing it on life. And by that definition, it's a drasha, and already you're not wrong. But if you make it up, then that's just a lie. There was no idolatrous practice to throw the foreskin at the feet of a baby. And if there is, then bring a source. Okay. That's how we're going to answer our parsha. The emphasis is, what was Moses doing with his hands held high, and what was Joshua doing in relationship? That's always bothered me. And that's another tool in learning Torah. Allow things to bother you. When somebody says, and that's why we went, what does and mean? Well, do you need to be told what and means? Sometimes, yes. Maybe my definition of and is not like yours. Two mazals that are like one. I don't know what it means his hands are raised with faith. Like when I was in 3rd grade, I raised my hand in faith that the teacher would call on me. Somehow, I don't think that that's Moses here. A lot of people say, well, it's shot, it's obvious. The Art Scroll translates it. He held his hands high in prayer. Well, it doesn't do much. I mean, do you hold your hands high in prayer when you daven every day? I've been in a lot of synagogues, and I've seen a lot of interesting and eccentric people. Can't say I see a guy standing there with his hands held up high. But Moses was special, and that's what he did. Well, I think you just made that up. It sounds made up. So in this parsha, we're going to find maybe there's something else going on, i.e., the prophetic experience and the Torah's detailing of the prophetic. Right? We know that the hand of God represents 5 fingers. 5 fingers represent the 5 books of Moses. Just to let the cat out of the bag, perhaps Moses' hands held high is a prophetic imagery of raising up the Torah. They just got commanded at Mara. All right, if there is a potential bad guy in the camp, and we know there's going to be with Korach, maybe Korach was not a one-off. Maybe that Moses' authority in Torah is being challenged, and right now he better solve it, because they just got done complaining pretty bad. And in case you didn't pay attention, in a couple of parshas from now, Moses is going to be obligated to die over it when he hits the rock. And that's where the Noahide comes in. Rabbi Katz, what does it mean, the people and the congregation of the people, and all the people, and some of the people, and the Israelites? And they'll say, the Torah likes to change a language every now and then, just to change things up like a curveball. Well, no, it doesn't. We know from the ger that there's code in the Torah. If it says ha-ger, it means one thing. It means ger b'sharecha, ger in your gate, it's another. And if you look into the commentaries, the system never breaks down. It's a perfect system. Right? When you follow the code, and there are several examples of code. The Talmud is filled with it. What does an et, aleph taf, do here? What does, a missing vav in a word where it's chasr, it's lacking, do here? And it makes sense. It holds water. Right? It's not just some guess. Well, it's missing a vav because... No, it's not. Tell me what the Torah teaches on it. Bring your drasha later and prove it if it's going to be beyond the level of exegesis. In our parasha, we have a great example. There's the children of Israel, and there's the entire congregation of the children of Israel, and a few other permutations. As I looked through the parsha, I saw every time it's the children of Israel, it's Jewish proper. And when it's like the congregation, or I would say the people is the Erev Rav. And Erev Rav is the entity that has Gerim in it. Now here's an analogy. Before I'm accused of saying that Gerim are Erev Rav, let's look at a cloud. Call the cloud evil, right? It's dark and it holds back the sun. Evil cloud. But rain comes out of it. Now, when is a cloud a swimming pool? No. But the rain comes out of it. That's the ger. That's the bounty. That's the good sparks that fertilize the world. And then the cloud just disappears, basically. God destroys the cloud. Maybe that's why the idolaters want to do war with the clouds. Remember the Beijing Olympics, right? They actually fought missiles into the clouds. It's like they went to war with God. I think one day that will upset God, mind you. Now, when we continue this thinking throughout the parsha, you'll see pristine accuracy. Whenever when you read into it, you see, the people here would be, the Erev Rav, and Gerim mixed in there and wanting out, and the children of Israel, they had meat because they were not the idolaters. And so it makes sense. It holds water, and it's a prophetic answer. Right? It's a real prophetic answer. It tightens up A to B. It tightens it up. And if we don't know about the ger, you're never going to find it. Never going to find it. You just don't have that male or female component against you to ever do it. It's always, me. And what do you call it? Egocentric and ethnocentric. But once there are two people in the Torah, now you're always thinking, in terms of the male, female, or somebody else. If it's somebody else, now you're logically not going to know who or what it is. God can then deliver the message. That's how you get a really deep understanding of the Torah. The ger gives you another gear, right? Just by having fifth gear as an option, maybe you'll go 50, maybe you'll go 220 if you're driving a Porsche. But if you never have fifth gear, you're stuck at 40 miles per hour. For the rest of your life, you're hitting 40. Then you're just going sideways. And how many different directions you can drive 40? The ger is a full new level of Torah. Now, in the parsha itself, just a little slight digression, Moses takes the bones of Joseph. And we know that Moses is showing the path of the ultimate redemption. So there you have it. There's that Od Yosef Chai, the bones of Joseph. Remember we said the bones are like the shield of Joseph. That Moses has the Joseph program in his hanhaga, his actions. He is acting like Joseph. I mean, his body acts like Joseph. Just like saras is like leprosy, even though it really isn't, right? I think here, I just lost my word. I give the analogy, I lost my word. We falsely say the saras is leprosy. It's like it. So here I would say, I just lost the word, the behavioral patterns in the body, the mannerisms would be like Joseph, right? Even though they're not exactly, but it's Joseph-like. When Moses takes the essence, the same word as bones of Joseph, that becomes the shield of David. And this here it's the shield of Moses essentially, or even here it's the strength of Moses. As we know, Joseph represents Ephraim and Manasseh, and the blessings of Ephraim and Manasseh by Moses show the strength of Joseph in Moses. The strength of Moses is unique in that he can call God to the prophetic chamber whenever he wants. And Moses trusted to do so. Another thing that we say about the Parsha was Mara, right? We already mentioned it, all the laws that were given. Moses singing the song of redemption, and Moses and the two messiahs. So just in the redemption aspect, and in the song itself, there's a prophecy of building the third temple, right? God's hands fashion it, the third temple. So Moses is becoming very messianic in the redemption. Just a side note. And then we have the heir of Rav, and the Amalek. Amalek is going to attack. Now we're at the crux of the story. The Vilna Gaon says there are three types of Amalek. There's the Samech Mem and Lamed Lamed, the evil entities. There are the evil Klippa, i.e. Esav, Yishmael, and the heir of Rav, meaning those that are counter to Hashem in the Torah, the non-Ger. And there is Amalek, literally, the literal nation of Amalek. And there is that which pertains to you, your evil inclination, your animal soul, right? All the additional elements that God puts into us to challenge us. And this war against Amalek on all of those levels is from generation to generation. Every generation, Moses is reincarnated. Again, you have that mannerism of Joseph, into the existence of the righteous of the generation, which is the Moses of the generation. He was looking to make Gerim. He who is dealing with the eradication of the heir of Rav. They flip over in the Moses aspect, the messianic aspect of Moses, the Joseph aspect within him, the characteristics of righteousness and that which is beyond the evil inclination to fight this against this. Okay, we now hit another marker. We've understood now the code and the messianic principles and Amalek. We're getting a glimpse of our reality, about the Noahide laws, Amalek, righteousness, reincarnations, who's who, all these things that we're dealing with. In the Parsha now, they're becoming told in a prophetic tale what we go through. Right? Understanding the code of Mazal in our daily lives, the code in the Torah. Who are the people? Who are we? Who's the guy next to you? And these are all relative issues, and they're brought to context that we can relate to them. Now, in the biblical sense of itself, why is she called Aaron's sister? The answer is because Aaron is either a firstborn, which he is, and he deserves the respect, or he's a great prophet too. Now, Miriam is the mother of Hur, and his father is of suspect lineage. Caleb is Miriam's husband. Caleb was accustomed to being with concubine. Another word for that might be the Ger Tzedek women, right? That were non-Jewish, to produce the children to Caleb. For Miriam, apparently could not have more children. But she was seen as the mother. Right? The same story is just like Judah and Tamar. Shem came in through a Gilgal inspiration of soul. The children of the tribe of Judah belong to Shem by a gymnastics of souls, even though Judah was the father. This was through the Levirate marriage and a bit of gymnastics. It's called Ben Benav. And it works like this. If I take a woman illegally and we conceive of a child, that child, spiritual heredity, her father is the father of the child. Even though I'm literally the father. That's how Shem became the father of Peretz and Zerach over Judah, because Tamar and the way Judah got together. But it doesn't matter because Shem then gets reincarnated in Judah, so it's fixed. It's like God pops the head off, puts the soul in, and glues the head back on. So too with Miriam and Caleb and Hur. There's a lot of gymnastics God does, and that's partly what the ger is about. How the ger can be involved in Israeli society, and I mean of Israel, and it's not considered foreign or goyish, or forbidden. Now, it has to be done with righteousness. If it's someone not keeping anything, that's where it becomes forbidden. But when it fits what's called kitzat ger, it's where some of the prerequisites are achieved, like a circumcision for a man, the woman does not take a mikvah, but she's holding at a righteous level and keeping all that she's supposed to keep. So it's a very strange case. We learn from Ketia Bar Shalom in Avodah Zarah 10b. That's the case with Miriam, Hur, and Caleb. Now, what we learn about Hur is he is a great prophet in his own right. This is why Hur was killed at the golden calf. He actually would have prevented it. So he was killed. Now, by the definition that he belongs to Miriam, we say that Miriam is his mother. We never really focus on the father for that reason. He is related to Levi very strongly, even though Caleb is Judah. What you have then is Aaron, Hur, and Moses standing with their hands in prayer, that's how it's perceived, upwards. It's the men of prophecy of the house of Levi. This is before Hur is going to be killed, and then Miriam is the prophetess. So what we learn from it is that Moses' hands were held and supported actually for Torah. Right? The hands are supporting upwards in Torah. And Hur and Aaron are going to know Moses' Torah prophetically. That's the point, prophetically. When you read the verses against Amalek, if you do the calculation, the gematria, it comes out to either 835 or 836. I didn't write it down because I did it years ago, but I remembered it. It says, when Moses' hands were held high, Amalek was weakened, and when Amalek did XYZ, Israel was weakened. If you do the gematria, it's the exact same number from the time that Moses' hands were held high, whatever that means. Again, so you see that there is a dynamic here of Mida connected Mida, this one against this one. And again, what it is the Torah aspect. There's going to be a Korach moment. Moses' hands represent the Torah, both hands, the 5 books, double. Like where Elisha says to Elijah, give me twice your spirit. Well, here Moses' hands are seen as held high. And Hur and Aaron are supporting each hand, saying, this is the Torah of Moses. Don't contend against Moses and God. You need to have faith, blah, blah, blah. So Amalek comes in as the enemy of the people. And the Torah there said the people. And that is the Erev Rav. They are the ones complaining here. And the Erev Rav are the ones that can undermine the Torah. That's why the ger is so instrumental in returning the Torah. He's the antithesis of the Erev Rav. That's what Korach got involved in later. That's what hitting the rock was. So the Amalek that came was the animal soul, the non-Joseph, the evil inclination. People were basically a bunch of shindolids. So what does it mean, shindolid here? Like demonic? The Zohar explains when you are manifesting your evil inclination, you are so lost in your whether it be your wrath or as typified by stupidity and out of character. We all have those moments. And in those moments is when you don't see eye to eye with the Torah. Our job is to lose those moments of arrogance and anger and be able to refine our vessels. Again, work on the hot, cold, soft, all that stuff to see the truth. So the Erev Rav are very coarse. They're not refined. That's why they died in waves over and over again. The time of the flood and the dispersion and Adam's years when he was without Eve. The Erev Rav would have needed to be able to refine one more generation, but Moses brings them out. He wants to do it now. He wants to make exile the refinement and not just Gehinnom for Israel. By doing so, they have the ability to undermine the entire Torah. And you know what? They came pretty close with the golden calf. Thus, Moses fights with Torah. And now Joshua is told to go out and fight the war with the sword. But if you know how Kabbalistic prophetic literature is expounded, sword is the tongue is prayer. Joshua is the man of prayer, as seen with Caleb and with Pinchas in the land and the spies. Joshua is always seen as pure and holy, not succumbing to the spies. So what Joshua is doing, he's the one with hands held high in emunah, faith, in prayer. If you read the verse, when it says he stood until the sun set in hands held in faith. That's Joshua. Joshua's praying. Just like Pinchas is quoted in Psalms as being standing alone and praying. Right? The sword is like the weapon of prayer. We know that. Rabbi Nachman teaches that. Jacob was an example of that. And thus his hands are held. Now a great example of this comes in Yoma 73 in the Talmud. And this is a side point. Joshua is seen as a king, and Eleazar is seen as the Urim and Tumim of the Kohen Gadol. Pinchas is seen as the priest of war. Now, we never mention Sanhedrin in the Navi. Why? Some say we didn't even have the concept of Sanhedrin in the form that we know it as. Now, what's interesting is the Talmud says the Eidot, the Eidah, in Hebrew, like roughly the group, the Eidah, the congregation, that the Talmud Bavli learns is the Sanhedrin. And we learn in our Parsha that the Eidah is the inclusion of the Gerim. In the Midrash, we know that Gerim sat with the Sanhedrin. And we know that Jethro is going to say to Moses, ease up on the statutes, they will wear you out. Form a Sanhedrin. As we saw it in Mara this week, that was at the Mara with the 7 laws of Noah and the statutes. So the congregation of all the people, that is in effect an inclusion of the Sanhedrin through the Gerim. Okay. Now that we know that, Joshua then is weakening everybody through the sword, and Moses puts in Joshua's ears sod, or secret. It says, Be'izne Yeshua. What Moses is doing is saying, by learning the Torah with Hur and with Aaron, he whispers in Joshua's ear, by the way, the war against Amalek will go generation and generation. Moses receives the prophetic command, and he instills it in Joshua. Joshua now can pray. The answer literally comes to him in the flesh, mazal, in real motion. And God promises the war will come to an end. By Moses' Torah, Joshua's prayer, Amalek's time is limited on earth. It'll go generation to generation. The reincarnations will happen. Moses puts his soul in gear. One day Moses will sing again. The entire redemption is laid out in our Parsha. Thus the Erev Rav or Amalek will live and die a life mercifully. They will be wiped out through mercy. It's called the judgment within the mercy. Moses won. What we found is that the Ger is included in these people. We didn't know who they were. We thought it was just regular language. It didn't really matter. What you find is that when you bring the Ger back, you're at least bringing First Temple knowledge. It's like Jurassic Park in the DNA. You're bringing back words and concepts and names that have been non-existent in thousands of years. It was never a priority. When you were in the shtetl in the year 1400, I'm really not concerned with making Gerim. I need to survive tomorrow. But here we are in the end of days. Gerim are coming back. Israel is secure on its land. Boker Tov, ladies and gentlemen, 1948. Which we're coming to the conclusion of 70 years later very soon. And the Ger and the Torah in the world we live in starts to make sense. Torah and prayer as a practical, prophetic service to God. We're not saying weird, archaic practices. He stood with his hands high in faith. What does that mean? Well, maybe it means the priestly blessing. Well, maybe it doesn't. But it's not a stretch to say Moses was learning Torah to find an answer. Right? He was learning to find the will of God. Joshua was praying, God, let him find the answer. Moses finds the answer and tells Joshua. Joshua prays on it. They offer it up. And God comes and says, write this in a book, Amalek will die. Very practical. It's not rational, it's super rational. The knowledge of the Ger brings the vessels back that make us able to understand the Torah on a prophetic level. They're a prophetic people. The revelation of the secrets in the Torah through the Gerim, through the code that we never would have seen before if we were going to remain ethnocentric and egocentric. You're bringing an addition to your soul that negates the evil inclination. A blast from the past. Much like that Rav Kadori note, a blast from the past. Now, if that note gave you inspiration of a couple of years, what happens when you inject the moch in the intellect of a people and a time and a thinking from thousands of years ago? You know, today where it's like the opposition is watching Mr. Rogers, and we're bringing back the light of Moshe Rabbeinu. Az Yashir Moshe. Then Moses will sing. And the women will sing through the song of Devorah, the male, ultimate male-female, Yesod Malchus, Moses and his female partner. As King David says, it's the ultimate song of my body just being here and alive, it cooperating righteously. It just cooperates. That's a song and praise in its own right. And then when you're inside, just acknowledge that. That's the song to God. And it comes down to a very simple level. Identify the Ger. At least for the context. In speech, in words and concepts. For to be able to identify in face to face, then you'll start to realize the mazal that we live in really belongs to the world of Sheker, and the world of truth is all around us if we would just know who these people are. Thank you very much. Have a great Shabbos and rest of the week. See you next time.